Blood spills across a meticulously handwritten manuscript. The ink, a treatise on theology and rationalism, distorts under the thick, dark weight of a physical reality. This is the crime scene in Fyodor Dostoevsky's The Brothers Karamazov, a murdered father, a fractured family, and a trial with life or death stakes. The prosecutor, Ippolit Kirillovich, looks past the local dispute. He argues to the jury that this specific family represents the features of the modern Russian educated class in miniature. Dostoevsky avoids the tropes of the traditional whodunit. He examines the architecture of shared guilt and moral culpability. In this universe, an idea is a physical weapon. A murder is never an isolated act. It is the terminal symptom of a psychological contagion spreading from mind to mind. The victim is the family patriarch, Fyodor Pavlovich Karamazov. He is an abject, malicious buffoon who abandoned his children to servants. He spent years accumulating wealth and pursuing unchecked sensual debauchery, viewing his own sons only as rivals or nuisances. By the time those sons returned to him as adults, his toxic legacy has fractured the human psyche into distinct ideological variables. Each son embodies a different, isolated extreme of human nature. This culpability matrix framework maps the family tree as a web of ideological suspects. Theodore acts as the central node, with branches radiating toward 4 distinct paths. Only one person held the heavy brass paperweight that crushed Fyodor's skull. Yet the narrative forces 3 different brothers to buckle under the moral weight of the crime. We have to figure out how they are all guilty. Focusing on the first node, targeting the eldest son, Dmitry Karamazov, we find the embodiment of unbridled emotion, impulsive rage, and sensual intent. The prosecutor dissects Dmitry's volatile psychology, pointing out his capacity to hold extreme contradictions simultaneously. He can give away his last farthing in an impulse of noble generosity, and in the next breath, sink into reckless, destructive debauchery. To prove he is an honorable man, Dmitry claims he stole 3,000 rubles from his betrothed, but kept exactly half of it sewn into a little cloth bag around his neck. The prosecutor mocks this defense. He argues that a true Karamazov lacks the stoic discipline to carry 1,500 rubles for weeks without tearing it open for the next tavern run. Dmitry is ultimately convicted of parricide. While he screams his innocence regarding the actual blood on his hands, he willingly accepts the sentence of hard labor in Siberia. He embraces the punishment because he recognizes that his intent to kill made him morally culpable. In Dostoevsky's Matrix, carrying a murderous intent in your heart is a form of spiritual violence that renders you guilty, even if someone else strikes the physical blow. The second branch of our map leads to Ivan Karamazov. He is a brilliant intellectual, physically detached from the crime scene, yet he acts as the ideological architect of the murder. Ivan operates strictly on what he calls a Euclidean mind, pure earthly logic. He observes the immense, unatoned suffering of innocent children and concludes that no future eternal harmony could ever justify that pain. Therefore, he logically rejects the framework of a benevolent God. From that rejection, Ivan derives a terrifying theorem. He posits that without God or immortality, there is no objective virtue. The moral guardrails collapse, leading him to state explicitly, everything is lawful. Ivan views this as a sophisticated, tragic thought experiment, but abstract philosophy operates like a contagion. By asserting that absolute moral boundaries are a fiction, he leaves a loaded gun on the table, waiting for a literal mind to pick it up. Ivan physically killed no one, yet his extreme rational nihilism, deliberately severed from moral grounding, provided the absolute logical authorization required to commit an atrocity. This authorization travels down our final branch, connecting Ivan directly to the mind of Smerdyakov, the illegitimate son serving as the family cook. He acts as the literal executioner. Smerdyakov is deeply resentful of his station, highly literal, and desperate for intellectual validation. He studies Ivan, soaking in his conversations about morality and the non-existence of God. He absorbs Ivan's theorem that everything is lawful, but he strips away the academic romance. To Smerdyakov, this becomes a practical permission slip to brutally murder his master and steal 3,000 rubles. The exact execution of this logic surfaces in a series of meetings between the two after the murder. As Smerdyakov lays sick in a hospital bed, he confesses the physical act to Ivan, showing him the stolen rainbow-colored notes. Smerdyakov clarifies the true authorship of the crime. "I did it with your guidance." Ivan's Euclidean mind shatters. He recognizes that his abstract rebellion directly manifested into a crushed skull. The realization drives him into a severe brain fever, breaking his sanity under the weight of a real-world body count. Ivan authored the intellectual logic, while Dmitri provided the emotional volatility. Smerdyakov acted as the physical instrument that finalized the sequence. Ivan's argument concerning the suffering of innocence creates a philosophical stalemate. It is a closed Euclidean loop. You cannot defeat his rational diagnosis of human misery with a tighter logical counterargument. Dostoevsky realizes that intellectual traps of this magnitude cannot be argued away. They must be completely circumvented through a lived reality. The answer arrives in the youngest brother, Alyosha. He enters the narrative as the manifestation of this lived truth, operating almost entirely on active, non-judgmental empathy. He listens to the darkest confessions of his family and responds without condemnation. While Ivan relies on detached theoretical rebellion, Alyosha answers with physical presence. When Ivan finishes reciting a grand poem detailing why humanity is doomed to suffering, Alyosha doesn't debate the premises. He simply crosses the room and kisses his brother on the lips. The gesture bypasses the intellect entirely. It demonstrates that morality is a lived action, standing apart from any logical argument. This rigid matrix of culpability shatters. The lines dissolve into a new, organic network of human connection. The narrative moves from autopsy to resurrection. This network is driven by what the novel calls active love. We see it clearly in the epilogue as Alyosha stands by a large stone surrounded by a group of schoolboys, grieving the death of their friend. He does not offer them abstract theological comfort. He insists on shared community, urging the boys to hold on to the memory of their love for one another. This living connection is the only true defense against the isolation that destroyed his older brothers. This reveals the ultimate theological premise of the novel. To Dostoevsky, we are responsible to all for all. The implication is that our shared guilt, the ways our actions and ideas ripple into others, is the precise foundation for our shared salvation. The Karamazov spirit contains the mechanics for ideological destruction, but it also provides the specific, active requirements for human reconciliation.